Well, they say everything's bigger in Texas, and I guess that includes the duds. We're going to be going over All-Star Race Weekend as we had action from all three series. We're going to be covering things such as Stuart Friesen breaking his winless streak, Tyler Reddick getting another win for a small team. We'll also be covering from the All-Star Race Ross Chastain launching his car across the track, NASCAR's questionable caution call at the end of the race, and Ryan Blaney winning with somewhat of a window net. All this and more is covered on 3 Wide. So kicking off the race weekend, we had the Truck Series Friday night, where you had Kyle Busch Motorsports teammates John Hunter Nemechek and Corey Heim on the front row. Stage 1 and 2, it all looked pretty much the same. You had Ryan Preece getting the win in each stage and Stuart Friesen finishing second in both stages. However, in Stage 1, you had Zane Smith finishing third, followed by Christian Eckes in fourth. Chandler Smith was able to finish in fifth, followed by John Hunter Nemechek in sixth. You had Ty Majeski finishing seventh and Ben Rhodes in eighth. Derek Kraus and Corey Heim, they would round out the top 10 in Stage 1. And in Stage 2, behind Preece and Friesen, you had John Hunter Nemechek in third and Ben Rhodes in fourth. Christian Eckes, he would get another top 5 finish in a stage, finishing in fifth. Derek Kraus would finish in sixth, followed by Corey Heim in seventh. Ty Majeski, he would finish in eighth, and Ross Chastain in ninth. And Tyler Ankrum would round out the top 10. So you see through the first 2 stages, it was all Ryan Preece and Stuart Friesen swapping the lead back and forth. They both had very strong trucks. Ultimately, Stuart Friesen would be able to snap a 53-race winless streak and a very exciting overtime battle with Christian Eckes and get his third career win. He would win as Christian Eckes would come home second and Ryan Preece in third. Carson Hocevar would finish in fourth and Ty Majeski in fifth. John Hunter Nemechek would finish in sixth, followed by Corey Heim in seventh. Chandler Smith would come home eighth, Matt Craft in ninth, and Matt DiBenedetto in 10th. So Stuart Friesen was able to get, as I said, it was a very good finish for the Truck Series. He clears Christian Eckes coming out of Turn 2 on the last lap. Up until that point, they had raced side by side, which is something we hadn't seen at Texas in a while. So it was a fun battle, good to watch, and good for Stuart to break that winless streak. He's been a truck lifer, able to lock himself into the playoffs. And Ryan Preece, he is 4 for 4 now with top 10s on the year. His 4 starts, he's finished, he's never finished outside the top 10 and really looked to be the truck to beat early until he got some damage in Stage 3 trying to block Christian Eckes. And when he went to make that block, it was just a hair too late. Got some rear damage to the truck, opened it up enough where it created drag and just sucked him back. And, lucky for him, his crew, they went to work, was able to repair it and get him back up there and get a solid third-place finish. And what I was really looking at post-race was the playoff standings. You got Matt Crafton right now, who is above the cut line by 35 points over Tanner Gray. And really looking at the standings as a whole, from 9th to 14th, it's been inconsistent drivers on the season. Now, you got Grant Enfinger in 9th and Crafton in 10th. That's where that cutoff is. They've had some decent runs, especially as of late, been able to get some momentum. Grant Enfinger, he's got 2 top 5s on the season, 5 top 10s. And really, these last 5 weeks has been where he's gotten most of those stats, just like Matt Crafton. He's got 1 top 5, 6 top 10s. And behind him, you got Tanner Gray, who, right now he's got 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s. His main reason he's up there in the running has been his stage finishes, getting bonus points. But really, since the third race of the season where he, popped off those top 10s and top 5s looking real strong, he has finished no better than 15th. So he's going to be looking to try and get some strong finishes, more consistent finishes out of his truck, from here on out. You also got Derek Kraus up there. He's got 2 top 10s on the season. Matt DiBenedetto, who has 4 top 10s on it, but unfortunately just has had a few weeks where he's just not had good results and not been able to get stage points. And then Tyler Ankrum's hanging back there with 3 top 10s. I think really, from Kraus, Matt DiBenedetto, and Tyler Ankrum, they've got to be looking to get a race win to get themselves into the playoffs. I don't think they'll be able. They haven't been running consistent enough at the moment to make up the points. Tanner Gray, like I said, with his stage finishes, he could have a shot at getting up there in points. We'll just have to wait and see how the rest of the season unfolds. We got an interesting schedule. We got Knoxville at the dirt race, coming down the line, which was a mess of a race last year. It'll be interesting to see if they clean it up and who can come away with a win there. A lot of unknowns coming into the next few weeks of this Truck Series schedule. And on Saturday, we had the Xfinity Series competing with Noah Gragson and Tyler Reddick on the front row. Noah, who's had a very strong season, continuing his hot season, getting a front row start, and Tyler Reddick driving for Big Machine Records, looking to get them some solid footing in the sport and continue to give them good feedback for their cars. Stage 1 would end up with Noah Gragson getting the win over Justin Allgaier in second. AJ Allmendinger would finish in third, followed by Brandon Jones in fourth. You had Austin Hill in fifth and Sam Mayer in sixth, followed by Sheldon Creed in seventh, Anthony Alfredo in eighth. You had J.J. Yelly finish in ninth, and Myatt Snyder round out the top 10 in Stage 1. Stage 2 would be a stage win for another junior motorsports driver, this time for Josh Berry. Justin Allgaier again would finish in second, followed by William Byron in third. Tyler Reddick would finish in fourth, followed by Noah Gragson in fifth. Ryan Truex would get sixth, followed by Sam Mayer in seventh. You then had Riley Herbst in eighth, and Austin Hill and Jeb Burton would round out the top 10 of Stage 2. And it was, really a junior motorsports dominant day up until about lap, 118, where they had led every lap. At least one of their drivers, they were all constantly swapping the lead. They would run into some trouble at the start. Everything would kind of start coming apart for them on lap 88, where you had Josh Berry spin on the final restart of the stage, collecting Noah Gragson. You then had Noah Gragson wreck 10 laps later and wind up with a DNF. Justin Allgaier, he would lose a tire on lap 118 and, make some contact with the wall. Somehow they were able to recover and get 4 cars in the top 10. And the top 10 overall would look like this: Tyler Reddick getting the win for Big Machine Racing and William Byron in second. Sam Mayer would finish in third and Justin Allgaier in fourth. Austin Hill would finish in fifth, and Ryan Truex in his last start for Joe Gibbs Racing this season would finish in sixth, followed by Josh Berry in seventh and Riley Herbst in eighth. AJ Allmendinger would finish in ninth, and Landon Castle would score another top 10 with a 10th place finish. So Tyler Reddick gets a big first win for this team, Big Machine Racing. They are affiliated with Richard Childress Racing on the Cup side, and it was another win for a small team that came by a Cup driver. You had Cole Custer win earlier this year in the 07 car at California. So now Tyler Reddick gets another first win for a team. And, I like to see this. You got these smaller teams getting these Cup drivers through affiliations and able to get in victory lane, get some solid finishes. You did have some people, mainly it was Brock Beard, put up a story on his site about why it's time to basically end Cup drivers going to these lower series. I disagree wholeheartedly, just because I feel like it's better now than it was back in the day when you had, multiple Cup drivers running the full season and getting the championship, like Kevin Harvick, Clint Boyer, Carl Edwards, Kyle Busch. NASCAR has done an excellent job with backing off these Cup drivers, getting in these lower series, keeping them out of the playoffs, only giving them, so many starts in a season that they can make. And to see them get with some of these smaller teams and get them in victory lane or get them solid finishes, is huge for them. It gives a chance for these teams to, take that next step forward in the sport and possibly build a new, race contending team week in and week out. Now, overall, this Xfinity race, it was very crash-filled. It looked like a truck race. It normally does. You had a big wreck on the front stretch with some smaller teams involved, one of them being J.J. Yelly, after having a strong run and a very strong qualifying run in what was an old Penske car. A car I'm sure they did not want to see torn up. It was probably the best car they had in their shop. Unfortunately, was just completely destroyed in this crash. JJ, he would get out of the car. He would be fine, cleared from the care center. In this wreck, you did have Jesse Iwuji involved. even though he was very far back from this wreck, and you can see him, no cars around him, everybody's been crashed, and he just kind of comes in, from out of nowhere, slides in, and says he wants to be a part of the party too, and damages his car, knocks him out. And that's kind of been, Jesse's career to a point. I'm not trying to, talk negatively about it. I think he's a good guy. He's a military, is in service. I think he's a good guy overall, and I think he could be one of the bright spots in ownership. I think that's where he needs to put his focus on, and get some different drivers. He's had Kyle Weatherman in his car this season with some solid runs. I think that would be better served for him and his talents. I just don't think he's got right now what it takes to be a contending driver. He's kind of been the footnote and really kind of a joke for a lot of people in this series. And I just think his efforts would be better served on the ownership side of the team, where he's, partnered with Emmitt Smith. You also had drivers constantly with the crash field race, getting loose, getting out of shape and spinning out, like Allgaier, Josh Berry, Noah Gregson was the main ones, and this big wreck. So it was kind of a sample of what we would see as far as just not a clean race for the All-Star race. But unfortunately, with what happened Sunday on the Cup side, it would be a much uglier ending than what we would see Saturday with the Xfinity Series. So now we go on to what was supposed to be the main event of the weekend, the All-Star race. Unfortunately, it wouldn't really become the big show that NASCAR was and the fans were hoping for. It would kind of be the black cloud over the All-Star race in general, as well as Texas Motor Speedway. But starting things out, you had the All-Star Open, which is a race to give, drivers that haven't won yet and lock themselves into the All-Star race a chance to get those final spots. Your Open segment winners were Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Chris Buescher, and Daniel Suarez. Eric Jones, he was able to get in by way of fan vote. And the couple things that really happened of note in the Open segments, you had Corey LaJoie get the lead after staying out when Stage 1 had completed, which gave him the lead, and he led the first half of Stage 2, was holding on to the lead pretty good. At Texas, we've seen in the last few races since they've reconfigured it, being ahead in the clean air makes a big difference. It seems, you have that air bubble around you that drivers behind you just can't break through, and you're sitting in a pretty good spot. And LaJoie had a good shot at being an upset winner in the Open, and a competitor in the All-Star race, because myself, and I'm sure a lot of people included, would not have seen that coming from LaJoie. LaJoie is a solid driver, but normally, with Spire Motorsports, they're still working their way to getting to be a more competitive team. That would have been a big shot in the arm for them to get a chance at $1 million. Unfortunately, none of that would come to pass, as the caution came out about at the halfway point due to Landon Castle wrecking. So that pretty much ended LaJoie's chances on the next restart, where ultimately Chris Buescher would get the win. And the other thing of note was Tyler Reddick, who going into this Open was viewed as the guy who was going to, from the drop of the green flag, dominate Stage 1, get the win early, and lock himself into the big show and be a contender in that one. Because, Tyler, he's had a lot of speed this season, and the way he likes to drive, his driving style would definitely add a lot of flair to the All-Star race. Unfortunately, that wouldn't happen for him. His day started off in a bad spot. He had to start in the rear due to some unapproved adjustments, but he had worked his way up to second place with about 18 laps to go in the final stage, trying to catch Daniel Suarez. He would end up losing it coming off of turn 4, and as he's spinning down the front straightaway, gets collected by with Harrison Burton, ending both those drivers' days. And Tyler, he was giving it all he had. He even made the comment he's just putting it all on the line. And with his driving style, that's just how he is, and that's what makes him probably one of the more entertaining racers in the field week in and week out. I believe he made the comment he didn't think he had the car to get around Suarez, like I said, with that air bubble, but he was going to give it all he could. And Reddick probably would have been in the show if he hadn't won the stages with the fan vote, because a lot of people were wanting to see him in that All-Star race. Unfortunately, just wasn't meant to be this season for Tyler. However, he has plenty of opportunities the rest of the season to get that first career win that would lock him into next year's All-Star race. So now we go on to the big show, the All-Star event. Kyle Busch, he was dominant from the get-go until he had a flat tire with about 3 laps to go in stage 2. And it happened as he's coming off of turn 4. He gets out of shape and immediately knows he has a problem, slows down, and just kind of coasting down the front straightaway. As the field is going by him, you had Kyle kind of cutting towards the grass at the end of the tri-oval, just trying to stay out of the way. Ross Chastain's coming up behind him and doesn't really have a move to the outside as there was a car to his outside. So really looked like a move of desperation. He dives underneath Kyle. He would have gone through the grass, but just trying to avoid what would be a major crash. But he was unsuccessful at avoiding that as he hit Kyle Busch just right to launch his car in the air. And when he came back on all fours, going up the track, because obviously he did not have control of his car, he collects Chase Elliott, hitting him in the left rear, sends Chase driver's side into the wall. And ultimately, it was a big hit for all 3 drivers. Fortunately, they were all able to get out under their own power and be cleared and be out of the care center. But that really would flip the race upside down, because at that point, it just seemed like it was going to be Kyle Busch's race to lose. That would change everything. Chastain, he was having a strong run. He was up there in the top 5, top 3. So that would change the whole outlook of the race. And now we're just going to jump straight into what was the controversy of the day, of the weekend, was the ending of the race. Now, with the All-Star race, I was not aware of this going into it. I may have just missed it on one of the pre-race shows, but the All-Star race must end under green. Whereas normally in most races, when the white flag falls, if the caution comes out, the race is immediately declared official. So you had a caution come out as Ryan Blaney was coming to the checkered flag due to Ricky Stenhouse Jr. I believe he had a flat tire. Either way, his car was out of shape. He made contact with the wall and was kind of just limping down the back straightaway. NASCAR throws the caution, even though the field had cleared him. He was no threat to, collect anybody else. He was still rolling down the track, had control of his car. So you knew it wasn't a health concern. It's not like he bounced off the wall and went straight into another one, or his car just came to a stop and you were concerned for his safety. So NASCAR makes a quick decision, throws out the caution just as Blaney is, feet from the start-finish line. Close enough that Blaney thought he had won. His crew thought he had won. They showed shots of his crew jumping up and down on pit road. Blaney had even undone his, window net, getting ready to celebrate, and NASCAR puts a pause on everything and says this race is not over yet. So we are going to have an overtime restart. And the big deal was, Blaney, he was having to try and get his window net back up, and that's a job normally done by a big crew member as the drivers are in the car, and the crew member does it from the outside, trying to hook it up. It's not an easy task. And here's Blaney going down the track at caution pace. I would guess somewhere in the, 60 to 70 mile per hour range, if I had to guess. And he's sitting there trying to get this thing buckled back in so that it's not a safety hazard for him, while also in the lead and, 2 laps away from what could be, $1 million payout due to the overtime restart. So there was a lot of, people not happy on social media, both former NASCAR drivers, current NASCAR drivers, media members, fans alike. Fans really weren't happy just because it was looking like NASCAR had possibly, screwed Blaney out of what was, pretty much his race. Ultimately, Blaney, he was able to get it fastened enough where it held in position. It still was... It was uncomfortable to watch when the green flag fell on that overtime restart, because they did a close-up shot and you see that window net not secured completely, and it looks like it's laying over on Blaney's head. And if the wrong thing happens, if Blaney gets out of shape and wrecks and gets caught up with another driver or anything, it could turn a bad situation worse. And ultimately, he was able to hold on and get the win, which kept a lot of mud out of NASCAR's face, because say this restart would have happened and Blaney doesn't come away with the win, then everybody's on NASCAR because they just ruined this kid's shot at what was sure to be his win. He was feet from the start-finish line. It wasn't really up for debate. He was going to be the winner. So Blaney gets the win, and then the talk after the race immediately shifts to what can be done to fix this all-star race. You had some people who were saying we just need to get the all-star race, gone in general completely. I disagree with that. The all-star race, is one of the most fun races that, if done right, you can, sit back and really enjoy. My favorite moments as a kid growing up watching the sport was watching driver intros and who was going to be cheered and who was going to be booed, things like that. And this would be the race where drivers would pull out random paint schemes that you normally wouldn't see, which now that's on a week-to-week basis. But it was just something special about it. It had that, important race feel. Even though there were no points on the line, it still felt important. So you had, obviously the more popular thing is move it to another location, which I fully agree with, fully support. And probably one of my favorite things I saw on social media was from Xfinity driver Ryan Vargas. He had tweeted that Wilkesboro makes the most sense if you want to move this. SMI, which is NASCAR owned, they own, North Wilkesboro. They own the track. You can fit 45,000 people there. And if that track comes back, give it the all-star race so it doesn't become just another track, just another race, which makes complete sense to me. North Wilkesboro, everybody's been wanting that track to come back. It's looking very positive that it does. Obviously, it probably will not be a cup points race, at least at this moment and probably in the near future. That would really bring back a lot of shine to that track, especially if you can get lights and make it a night race. I have no doubt in my mind that place would become an instant sellout just if you come back for that one race, winner take all, short track racing. That just, sounds like a winner to me. Then you have Marcus Smith go on Sirius XM today, and he is the president of SMI. And he tells Sirius XM NASCAR that they sold more tickets for this year's race at the All-Star at Texas than they did last year's Texas All-Star event, which, I can believe, because last year we were still kind of in the middle of the pandemic. Not a lot of people still getting out and going to events yet. So there's no surprise there. It's not really a good thing to compare. And said, there's some people out there, fans, who just like to complain no matter what. And he said, talk to the fans who was at the track. They had a great time. Well, again, there's not a lot of lies, I'm sure, in that. There are fans who love to complain, and I'm sure there were fans who were at the track and had a great time. But number one, that's because at the track you have more events than just sitting, around at the house watching it on TV. You have all these, pre-race shows going on. You have, souvenir tents, trucks. I'm not sure what all else goes on at an all-star event, just because personally I've never been to one. But, and there are going to be fans who like to complain no matter what. There were fans who complained when it was at Charlotte saying that we need to move this race around. When they finally did it, moved it to Bristol, there were people complaining about that race. You're never going to change, that, and you're never going to please every fan. But I do feel like you need to listen to the majority, and it seemed like the majority is in favor of moving this race back to Charlotte, putting it on a rotating schedule. Even people in the, NASCAR community, as a sense of former drivers and, as I said, media members and even broadcasters. Mike Joy even made the comment when that caution came out there at the end that he knows what he would like to say, but he won't. So that tells me Mike Joy's probably got some pretty strong feelings on it. Another pretty, interesting interview was right after the race with Denny Hamlin, who ultimately would finish second. And Denny had a strong car. He was not very happy with NASCAR after the race. He said 2 wrongs don't make a right. NASCAR shouldn't have thrown the caution, especially with Blaney right there at the start-finish line. But they also should not have left Blaney out there with window net issues. Rules are rules. So basically he was saying, NASCAR, shouldn't have thrown the caution. That's the obvious. But, because they pretty much, put Ryan Blaney in a corner, they shouldn't have bent the rules and kept him out there with what was a big safety issue. Now, I agree with those statements. I think Denny might have alluded to maybe, they should have not necessarily, I don't want to say penalized, but pulled Blaney on pit road, which I would be, I've seen a lot of people, talk about that, put Ryan on pit road, let him get his winning net fixed, no tire change, no fuel, just send him back out there and put him back in position. That would have been the smart call and the better call ultimately. NASCAR did not make that decision. So now I'd sent out on social media after the race what I thought could fix this event. Because like I said, I don't want to see it go away. I don't want to see this big show it's become. Go back to what the fans want, which is this race to go back to its roots. The number one thing is take it to a new track. I feel like if you go back to Texas Motor Speedway next year, NASCAR's going to be in a point where they got to make a decision. All right, do we keep this race or not? Because I don't feel like they're going to sell, more tickets next year than they did this year. I don't feel like the ratings are going to be up, from this year compared to next year. If they do announce it goes back to Texas, that could be it as far as the All-Star race. I hope not. I hope NASCAR instead makes the decision to take it back to Charlotte or put it on a rotating schedule somewhere, or take it to a track like North Wilkesboro or Nashville Fairgrounds, somewhere the Cup Series isn't racing right now. I feel like that would inject some new life in it. You'd get some excited fans to go out and see that race, especially if you're in areas you haven't been in quite a while. Another thing that I think would help this race this week is bringing back the Pit Crew Challenge as a standalone event. That's what a lot of fans I saw on social media were saying. They missed the Pit Crew Challenge. Really put a highlight on the guys who are there week in, week out, working the long hours to try and perfect their craft. Puts the spotlight on them, and I think that would be the best thing to do instead of just, at the intros you see their name pop up for, 10 seconds. Get some more shine on them pit crew members. Another thing is cleaning up the race format. It has gotten kind of ridiculous how now it's, okay, if you win stage 1, you'll start on the pole in the final stage. If you finish second in stage 2, you'll start second in the final stage. And the same thing with stage 3. And then, if you have the fastest pit stop at the end of this stage, then you start fourth. It's just too much. And then you add in, but you have to finish in the top 15 in the stage before the last, or something to that's my whole point. It's too confusing, too much. Go back to just a simple format, which is, I think, and they mentioned it on Door Bumper Clear, last week before the All-Star race. Go back to an elimination style. Put more emphasis on the racing, which is what fans want to see. If you are at this position and back, if you're in, 20th to 25th position at the end of stage 1, you're not done. That puts more emphasis on racing hard in the back to keep yourself moving forward, to keep yourself in the race and in the running for $1 million. Another thing, and this was one kind of, that I noticed at the end of the race, was bring back the victory lane stage for the All-Star race. That was always cool to see them bring that, the stage like they do at Martinsville up in the front straightaway, get the whole crew, the driver out there. It's a big celebration with the confetti, and they hold up that huge $1 million check. It kind of, is a good cap to the end of the race. You see these guys celebrating, they get this huge payday. I'm already wanting them to bring back victory lane at the end of each race, I feel like, for the interviews, because I feel like that would bring back a lot of, it's sad it would bring back a lot of nostalgia, but, getting to see the crew guys, everyone enjoy the win. So basically make this All-Star race fun again. Watching last night, it wasn't fun, honestly. Even with the whole, Chastain and Kyle Busch wreck that turned the race upside down, that wasn't entertaining to me. What's entertaining is seeing these guys, racing neck and neck throughout the race, battling for each position because it counts. You got to make this All-Star race fun again if you want it to succeed in the future. So before we get into our spotlight section of the show and looking ahead at Charlotte next weekend, we had some silly season news break today with Joe Gibbs announcing that he is really confident they're close to sponsorship for the 18 car. According to rumors, it is possibly going to be a tech company, but time will tell on that one. And he also feels good about securing a deal with Kyle to continue to drive that car. and also talked about his grandson, Ty Gibbs, that he would like to see him back in the Xfinity Series next year. He would like Ty to run at least 2 years in the Xfinity Series as a whole. So it's looking most likely we will see Ty back in the Xfinity Series next year. And I'm sure we can count on some part-time Cup starts to go ahead and get him some experience. And I feel like in the long run, that's probably best for Ty. Ty's got a bright future ahead of him in this sport. You don't want to rush him up too quick. As we've seen with drivers before, drivers like Casey Atwood and Joey Logano, drivers that just, seems to take them a little bit longer to adjust to the Cup level where the top guys are week in and week out. So obviously wanting to work him in slow and give him the best chance he's got at succeeding on the Cup side. But now we're going to jump right into our spotlight, where we will put the spotlight on drivers who were able to overcome any adversities they had in the race, make the most of what equipment they had, or able to break they've been on a rough run and able to snap that streak and get a solid finish. For the Truck Series, my spotlight driver is Corey Heim, and this was his first top 10 since his win at Atlanta. He did show speed at Kansas last week until he had some motor issues. And one thing I didn't realize about Corey was that he is 19 years old. I did not realize he was that young. So he's got a lot of promise. He's, got several wins in the ARCA series, and seems to be gaining confidence and getting his footing in the Truck Series, especially since his win at Atlanta. He's been very good at qualifying. And he'll be a name to watch, as I think he could make the jump to full-time for Kyle Busch Motorsports next year in the Truck Series. There are two full-time drivers they got right now. You got John Hunter Nemechek, who I do not see coming back for a third season in the trucks. I think he's going to be ready to go on to bigger and better things, whether that's in the Xfinity Series or the Cup Series. That'll be a move to watch in silly season. And then Chandler Smith, and depending on what happens on the Xfinity side for Joe Gibbs Racing, I think that could be a good landing spot for him. Maybe Sam Hunt Racing if he gets that opportunity. Either way, I see him making more Xfinity starts next year, getting ready to make that transition. So you could have one, possibly two open seats for Kyle Busch next year, and Corey Heim could easily, slide in and fill that role. And on the Xfinity Series side, my choice is Josh Berry, who was able to finish in 7th after wrecking at the start of the final stage. He had quite a bit of damage to the rear of his car, however, was able to overcome that, come away with a solid top 10 finish, and really show how strong a car he really did have, even with the damage. He was up there running towards the front, as with his teammates at Junior Motorsports, and was able to still come away with a top 10. So he is my spotlight driver in that series. And I do not have one for the All-Star race, for the Cup Series. I figured with it being an exhibition race, there was really no need, as the spotlight is normally on one driver only throughout the race, and that is whoever is leading and gets the $1 million check at the end of the day. And honestly, after the race we saw Sunday night, I don't think we need to put any more spotlight on that. So now we look ahead to our races upcoming Memorial Day weekend at Charlotte. And this is a big race weekend for NASCAR every year. This is their chance they do an excellent job at honoring the men and women who serve our country and those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we have the opportunities and the chances that we have here. That give these drivers a chance to go out and shine, and gives us a chance to go out and watch them. So it's a chance to say thank you to them. They do excellent pre-race shows with the military. It's going to be a race with a lot of military dignitaries there and representatives. And they should have quite a show to watch. It's going to be interesting to see how this next-gen car races at Charlotte. With Texas aside, this car has really done good at mile and a halves. And I think Charlotte will be another one. Check mark in that box. I think we'll see a very good race. On the Cup side, Kyle Larson is the defending race winner, where he had a dominant 600 on top of his dominant season last year. In the Xfinity Series, you had Kyle Busch defending his race win. Well, not defending it. He will not be in the Xfinity Series race if last I looked at the entry list. However, he will be in the truck race, where his truck, driven by John Hunter Nemechek, will be looking to defend his race win from last year. So, and some drivers of note, you got Ryan Preece, who will be running all three races over the weekend. He's going to be driving the 17 truck for David Gilliland Racing. on Friday. He'll be driving for BJ McLeod Motorsports on Saturday and driving for Rick Ware Racing on Sunday. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he does in that BJ McLeod Motorsports car. It's going to be a good chance for that team to get a solid finish with a driver like Priest. So that'll be one team to watch. And also on the Xfinity side, you got Austin Dillon driving that 48 car for Big Machine Racing, coming off their first win as a team, looking to go back-to-back, and they'll have a good chance with it with Austin Dillon. And then Trevor Bain makes another start in the 18 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, see if he can continue his momentum and get another strong finish. And on the truck side, you'll have Kyle Busch making one of his few starts this season. So automatically, Kyle in a truck race, he's going to be the one to watch and probably the favorite. So it'll be fun to watch, see who is able to take the checkered flag across all three series. And that'll wrap up this week's episode of 3 Wide. Be sure, if you haven't already, to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to this podcast from, whether it's Apple, Google, Stitcher, or Spotify. You can also find me at anchor.fm/3wide3. I hope everyone has a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Be sure to remember those that have served and sacrificed it all so that we can enjoy and have the freedoms that we do. And I will see y'all same time next week as we go over the Charlotte race weekend.